they all motivated me, and I did my first half marathon in 2019. I think the reason I was able to do it also is because I had this confidence. I didn't have this, I was very self-conscious of the loose skin that would be visible under my shirt. The thing is, at the gym, I remember a few times somebody would say, "Oh, you must have lost a lot of weight because I see that the skin there." And it was embarrassing to me. It held me back really from wanting to run outside. And then I did my first half marathon, and that was an amazing experience. Just something I never in my life dreamed I could do.
Welcome to the Plant-Based DFW Podcast Weekly Show with Dr. Riz and Maya, a show broadcasted from the Dallas-Fort Worth area that focuses on lifestyle medicine. This is the use of evidence-based lifestyle therapeutic approaches, such as a whole food plant-based diet, regular physical exercise, adequate sleep, and stress management to treat, prevent, and oftentimes reverse lifestyle-related chronic diseases that are all too prevalent. Every week, they feature a guest who speaks on one of these lifestyle medicine pillars. This show is for you, the person who is seeking to improve your overall wellness and quality of life. So whether you are driving, walking, or relaxing at home, we hope this show will provide you one more tool for your wellness toolbox. Let's meet today's podcast guest.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. Before I introduce our guest, Richard Hubbard, there's some information that I'd like to share with you. And I always find that it's easier if you're part of our newsletter, because that way I can send you details and links and things like that. Sometimes our listeners don't see the show notes because they're either watching on television or they're listening on their app, and maybe they don't know how to access the show notes. So the best way to know about the summits that are coming up and about things that we're part of is to follow our newsletter, which, by the way, we are going to be in a summit in May, and Dr. Riz and I, and there's another summit I want to tell you about in May as well. So please sign up. This is the link, bit.ly/PBDFW newsletter. And when you use that link, you get access to our 2020 recap video where we tell you about last year and how we survived that. Okay, our podcast has a new look. I don't know if some of you have noticed, but we have a new cover with myself and Dr. Riz. We have a new logo, new colors, a new soundtrack. With a narrator who does our introduction. So you might have noticed those changes and wondered, what? Is this the same show I was listening to before? Well, we have a little bit more energy and excitement about the podcast world. And so we wanted to put more energy and creativity into that. I was recently checking out our stats for the podcast and noticed that we have listeners in many other countries aside from the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK. And I sort of just wanted to send you a shout out and say thank you for listening. So people from Ireland, Germany, Russia, Belgium, France, Spain, Mexico, Italy, India, Netherlands, Switzerland, Sweden, Romania, Puerto Rico, about 3 countries in Africa are listening, along with other areas of the world that are listening. So I want to say thank you for listening, and we hope that you're finding value in the content. We now are on 14 podcast apps, and that includes Audible, which is really cool. Send us a message and let us know where you're listening from. I've created this link also where you can message us. It's bit.ly/PBDFW listener. I want to hear from you. I want to know who you are, how this has helped you, and what has your plant-based journey been like. Please send us a message. And like I mentioned, we are now on Audible. So yes, you can listen to our podcast on Audible. And so visit this particular link that I'm giving you, bit.ly plant-based DFW Audible, and leave us a review. And why would we want anyone to leave us a review? Well, because that helps other people know what the content is about. Tell us what you have gained by listening to our guests. So I was recently invited to be part of the Pod Advisory Committee for the Plant Pure Communities organization. And as many of you already know, Our organization, Plant-Based DFW, is considered a pod under this organization. Prior to COVID-19, we held monthly in-person events at our local library where we held lectures, movie screenings, potlucks, and even panel discussions with a goal of supporting our Dallas community in going plant-based and being healthy. Well, I am now part of the POD Advisory Committee, which is designed to ignite, transform, and enrich the PPC's endeavors to create vibrant global change. I'm providing the links so that you can see if there's a pod in your area. And a pod is meant to support you as an organization that meets in person, but now a lot of us are now online. And we just want to provide resources for you so that you can continue to be successful on a plant-based diet. Also, show notes can be viewed in either your computer or your mobile device. I always include a video version of our interviews on our YouTube channel, and the link for that is bit.ly, so bit.ly/plant-based DFW. Okay, enough about that. Like I said, you can learn a lot about this information that I share if you follow our newsletter. Let's meet our guest. Richard Hubbard is a webmaster and resides in Connecticut. He also maintains a health blog by the name of healthylivingct.com and does a podcast. Rich recently published a weight loss book titled A Plant-Based Journey to Health about his incredible 150-pound weight loss that he managed to keep off. He's 100% vegan and tries to work out 5 days a week, having done 2 half marathons the past couple of years. In this episode, we learn about Richard's journey from being diagnosed as hypertensive to becoming a marathoner, an author, and now an inspiration to many. As usual, I find so much value in sharing testimonials like this because I feel like people can identify with being stuck in a certain place and then finding motivation through these conversations. So as always, I hope that you enjoy this episode and thank you for being part of the community. Welcome, Richard.
Well, thank you for having me as well.
Many people struggle with weight issues, and that's kind of what became part of your journey, is to help others. I did a post recently where I asked people how are they kind of managing their high blood pressure, and you responded and shared your story, and then I thought, oh yes, of course, I seen you on Chef AJ. So I'm very excited about talking about how you were able to lose your weight, but also blood pressure, because that's a big issue right now, especially with it being a core morbidity and making people more vulnerable to having more complications if they should get the coronavirus. So Richard, tell us a little bit about yourself, your upbringing, and I always wonder if people struggle with weight issues early on, or maybe there were some things put in place early on that led to some weight gain.
Oh, definitely. To start out with, let me show you my picture from where I started, if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. I think that's always a good starting point.
It is.
So this was me about maybe 9-10 years ago. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, that's a good, yes, right there.
So,
wow.
Yeah, it was a big difference. So I never thought I would be able to do this as much as anybody else. But anyway, let me start at the beginning of where my journey started. This was back in 2012. Initially, I hadn't gone to a doctor in years, but the state of Connecticut, because I work for the state of Connecticut, they changed their insurance requirements. At the time, I wasn't happy about it, but it was a life-changing moment for me, because they suddenly required a physical to face cheaper premiums. And I guess I was frugal with my money because I wanted to do a physical. And it actually surprised me looking back, because my background, I always avoided the doctors. And I'm so grateful I got the courage to do it. So I was faced with doing a physical. My doctor that I had when I was a kid, he retired shortly after I graduated college, and I had nobody. And so I researched on the internet for local doctors in my area, and I saw somebody with a small practice, and I didn't want to go to a big practice. I don't know, I wanted to go to an old school doctor at the time for some reason. And I came upon this doctor. He was he was a couple of years from retirement. And I reluctantly went to that physical. And he confirmed what I had already known, that I was obese. But the way he said it scared me to death, because he told me I was morbidly obese. And nobody has ever told me in that kind of language before. So that was one wake-up call. And then he told me something that I didn't even think about, because high blood pressure is a silent killer, they say. He told me I was hypertensive. And he also told me that I would need to go on medication if I didn't get it down by the next appointment. He wanted to see if it was, just an artificial high reading at that first appointment. So he gave me a week to come back. And yes, it was still high. It was probably, I don't recall the number, it was probably like 150 over 110 or something. I seem to remember 110 is the bottom number anyway. So it was high. And I was scared to death. He told me I'd have to lose the weight, and he also wanted me to go on the meds. So I picked up the medication, and I read the side effects, and it's a page long of side effects. And this is coming from somebody who doesn't even like to take Tylenol. It's just the way I am. And I did not want to face that. And I remember I was telling my mom about the meds, because she's a nurse, and she gives out medication all the time. And her attitude was, well, everybody's on something, and it's really not a big deal. And, she takes meds herself. This is back then. So for some reason, and I don't know where it comes from, I had this stubborn attitude inside me that I want to do this on my own. I didn't want to be dependent on meds. And you have to understand my background, that my dad also, he was on like 10 different meds. And my stepmom, who he married later on, she was also on a lot of meds. And they're probably pretty much going to be on meds for life, because they never made any changes. And I didn't want to be like that, because I saw my dad, he was taking one medication to cover the side effects of another medication. And I was thinking how depressing that is. And so I called up my doctor and told him I want to try and lose my weight first and see if the blood pressure comes down. And I didn't know what I was doing, because I was still an amateur at all this. And I was shocked. He actually agreed. He said if he sees the weight starting to come off, and if the blood pressure comes down in 6 months, he would give me 6 months. He would hold off on the meds. And if after 6 months it's down, he won't pressure me anymore for that. So fast forward to December of 2012. Not only did I impress him at that 6-month visit, this was almost 12 months later. I had dropped 120, my first 150-pound weight loss, and the first 120 pounds. And he could not believe it. My blood pressure was like 110 over 70. And he was just so amazed. And he never believed in like a lifestyle change. He wanted me to do Weight Watchers. Because at the time they were promoting a Weight Watchers for Men program. I remember seeing that on TV as well. And I didn't like that idea. Why? Because it seemed like a temporary fix, and I wanted something permanent. And April 2012 is when I first discovered Dr. Furman. And that was totally life-changing, like the physical was. He opened my eyes to the G-Bombs foods. He was on an episode of Dr. Oz, and I happened to catch it one day. It was like a fate almost, because I don't know how I happened to be home, from work that one day, but it worked out good. And I've been eating the G-Bombs foods, I believe, every day. I'm not sure for certain, but those are always my go-to foods. I follow other plans. I do Dr. Greger's plan as well, but the G-Bombs foods, that's my basics for every day.
I like Dr. Furman. I'm familiar with his work as well. Can you explain to our listeners what G-Bombs are?
Oh, sure. Yes, those are greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. Those are the basic foods that he recommends people eat every day. Mm-hmm. And they work.
Yes, they do. And so, what was different? Why Dr. Furman? Why did you buy into that? Because you've said in the past that you did try other diets as well. Were you just finally tired of it all?
Yeah, well, what happened was I was doing yo-yo dieting for years, and I tried everything from high protein diets to low carb and everything in between. Nothing was working. I never even had any significant weight loss with any of them. It's not like I lost the weight and regained it. I was just never having any success. And Dr. Furman came along, and his message was different. It wasn't about the weight loss. Yes, they all had weight loss on the program, but his message was about, he mentioned lowering blood pressure as one of the possible outcomes. And that was my mission at the time, because I was, really trying to improve my health. So that really resonated with me. When I heard that, I thought, I'm going to give this a try. Maybe the weight loss will come too. So
Yeah, and it worked. Obviously, you were very successful the first year. So you mentioned Dr. Furman. For me, Dr. McDougall is the person that really kind of, I feel like, gave me permission to eat those starchy foods that a lot of people are afraid of, right? Once I got on that way of living, I never really felt hungry. As a matter of fact, I realized I have to eat more in many ways.
well, you should see the size of my salads. I mean, I eat a lot of food.
So how did that affect you psychologically when, in many ways, you had the diet, the standard American diet, where you would order in large amounts, and now here you are eating plant-based, and you're given permission to eat large amounts of food. How does that affect you psychologically?
It's a very strange experience. But the thing is, to be honest, I think I was getting sick of my lifestyle and the way I was eating. Um, I think really it was because of the health problems. So psychologically, I was ready. I was tired of relying on fast food and all the junk food, and I didn't want to get any worse. So I think that psychologically that was the reason why, and I think that's why I kept my cravings in check too. I mean, I didn't have these huge cravings for things when I gave them up,
Mm-hmm.
and also I gave up food in stages. I remember the first food that I let go of was red meat, because I remember reading an article that red meat might cause high blood pressure. And also, I had a problem I didn't mention about the high cholesterol, that the doctor wasn't as worried about that. And I also wanted to lower my cholesterol. So, red meat, obviously, that was a great food to give up for that. And I didn't crave the meat once I gave it up, because I don't like to admit this now that I'm 100% plant-based, but I was still eating like turkey or chicken that first year. And so I think that's why it was easy to give up red meat. And then I gave up aspartame in any food that had aspartame in it. So by doing that, what I was really doing was eliminating processed foods from my diet that first year. I didn't really plan it that way, but that's the way it worked out, because when you're looking for all these ingredients that you're trying to eliminate, eventually there's not going to be many processed foods you're able to eat.
What you're talking about is a transition that's sustainable, right? So you're eliminating slowly while you're adding a lot of more healthy options. And we always say that that's really the way you should do it. My change was overnight, but it wasn't as drastic. And the reason I feel like it wasn't was because I already had stopped eating red meat and pork in college. But I agree with you, Richard. Letting go of the processed foods, that was a significant step for me.
Yeah, it really that's the tough part. I think for me I think the toughest part was giving up the cheese, as they say. It's the dairy that really is the toughest. It's addictive.
That's right.
But other than that, I didn't really have any cravings. Like I said, 'cause I think it was just time to let the food go.
Yeah.
And but I give a lot of credit to people like you and other people I've heard who are able to just do it overnight. I think whatever will get you there, then do it. If you could do it overnight, that's great. If you need to do it in steps, that's great too. I think it's important to just go down the correct path.
What sort of support did you receive? So you started with Furman, you kind of took initiative on your own. Did you find any other kind of local groups or online groups that also helped you?
You mentioned that the first year, I was also exercising like a maniac. Probably, I probably didn't have to exercise so hard. But the thing is, as you know, being plant-based, you have all this energy too, because my diet was so bad before then. But I was doing wellness challenges that first year. I remember the first one was probably in April or so. And it was a weight loss competition. We were in teams of 4 at the local YMCA. And my team, we really worked hard. And the teammates, I love wellness challenges. I highly recommend them. We all cheered each other on, and I had the most weight loss in the team. And I never imagined I'd be able to do all this. And, here I am running, we did a 5K, which is nothing now, but back then that really was a big deal to me because I never could run in high school. I couldn't even do the track. I would be out of breath, and the gym teacher would say it's the end of the period and time to go to the next class. I couldn't even finish. So that really was a big deal for me to be able to do a 5K. And, to have the teammates cheer me on like that, it really was a great experience.
Wow. Congratulations on being able to even do a 5K. How soon after your weight loss were you able to do that?
Probably, I think that this was in the summer. So I didn't even lose all my weight. Yeah, I mean, some of these foods I eliminated were prior to even hearing about Dr. Fuhrman. But I mean, I really got healthy with Dr. Fuhrman.
So, Richard, I'm curious about growing up or your life. What contributed to your weight gain in the first place?
I had what I consider a normal childhood, but the problem is I wasn't, I would say, morbidly obese as a kid. I was probably mildly overweight, I guess, 30, 40 pounds. I mean, in comparison to what I was as an adult, it wasn't as bad. But I would hear jokes from different kids at the schoolyard. I would be bullied once in a while, and it made me feel bad. And also, I think because of my diet and I wasn't as active as other kids, I didn't get to play competitive sports like I wished I did now, looking back. So I think I would have been a great athlete because of the way I am now. But so that's one of my regrets about my childhood is just, the kids, they didn't think I was in shape to play. And I, as a result of not practicing as much, I wasn't as good as the others. So, I never really did any high school sports as much as I wanted to. And the funny story is that I have a cousin who actually became a professional basketball coach for colleges. And here I am. I was never even competitive in high school or anything. And it's just kind of funny. But he was older and he didn't, teach me much either. So, but I mean, I did, I was very active in other ways, I guess, as a kid and had friends, but just not active enough. And the thing is, I love junk food. And my sister, she loved junk food too. And yet she was healthy weight. My dad, he's never gained weight. He brags he's the same waist size as when he was in high school, and that's never changed. He's still the same way today. And I was, I guess you could say, my mom's side of the family. There's more obese people on that side, and so that's where the obesity came from. Okay. But I probably overindulged. I know I did as a kid. We ate all the bad foods. I ate ice cream and pizza and after school snacks, or nothing was healthy. Interesting note though, my mom did like salads, and I think that's why I developed a taste for veggies, even though I wasn't eating enough of them. Mm-hmm. And she always made sure there was a salad before our dinner, which I'm grateful for.
So that's good to know that at least she did value that. But she also brought the other foods into the household, right? What you mean like junk food. So she's the one that probably, wanted to reward you guys with ice cream and candy bars and things like that.
Bag of potato chips a day, a huge bag. And I mean, she's changed since then, thank God. Mm-hmm. She's actually reversed her type 2 diabetes for the most part. Because she adapted a plant-based lifestyle as well. So
Oh, wonderful.
I'm kind of proud of that. So
is she off her medications as well?
for the most part, I mean, she has her cheat days. She's not as perfect as me.
Yeah, to add to what you were just saying about foods and things that kind of were very normal in your household, during my teaching days, I worked with elementary kids, and back in those days, it was okay to give kids candy, right? Like the teacher always had a jar full of candy, and that's what we did until one day we were told we will no longer be allowed to do that. And now knowing what I know today, I kind of wish that I had not done that, but we don't know better.
Yeah, and looking back, you're absolutely right. When I was a kid, the teachers, what would they reward you with? Some candy. I wish it was fruit back then. I mean, it would it gave us a much better outcome.
That's right. It was just in the dentist. I think dentists too.
Oh, I had tons of cavities too. That's the other problem with my teeth, and I haven't had one cavity since going plant-based.
Now, when did you notice the most significant weight gain? Was that like after high school or during?
Oh, yeah. I didn't really gain. I wasn't morbidly obese until after high school. And the reason for that is because in college, for example, I was very active. In fact, I was probably in better shape. I know I was in better shape in college than in high school. I was walking every day. My college, I went to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm from Connecticut, a suburban area. So that was a big change. And we would go to the Manhattan, the city, always. Every weekend, we would walk miles and miles. And I was getting in shape then. I remember my weight being, I remember one time weighing myself was like 218. And I was, so thrilled. I mean, I wasn't at my ideal weight, which I am now, but the problem is when I graduated college, I had a desk job, and I wasn't doing the walking, and I wasn't doing any exercising, and sitting all day, and that really took a toll. And I was binge eating. I had coworkers, unfortunately, would often push junk food. People would bring in bags of food, and if there was, I remember several times, if there was food laying around, others wouldn't want to eat it, and they'd say, "Oh, come on, eat it. What's the big deal?" And they would push the food on me. And I had a sister who was anorexic, and she would also push food, and so it's like all these people around me were just encouraging bad behavior.
Yes. Well, so now you have two environments. Growing up, the family environment and what they're providing, and then you have work, which it just seems like a lot of times from my own experience in the workforce is that it's soothing. If you can have a donut in between during your break, it kind of helps you to get through the day. And this is kind of why I feel like it seems like rewarding when your peers, your coworkers bring a bag of treats. It's like, you want to give them a pat on the back. Thanks for looking out. This is going to help me.
It was an excuse for a break too.
Yeah.
We would have a joke because none of us were smokers. We called it a non-smoking break. We did our donuts or whatever junk food we were eating. Yeah. And it was an excuse for a break to eat the junk food as well.
Again, I can see how rewarding it is and how it helps to kind of manage some of the stress that you go through during the day at work.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up because I like to say when I made the transition, the foods were still there. I had a different job. There was still a lot of food around. But the difference is, I think with the plant-based foods, I was feeling more satisfied. So I didn't really crave the other foods that the other people were eating. But, my taste buds shifted.
So now you're getting healthy, you're losing weight, you're becoming physically active and making this visual, significant transition. What did your coworkers say to you?
That was a really hard adjustment for me because I'm not used to the, all this attention. It was really kind of stressful to me at first. And I remember downplaying it. I could never admit that I lost the weight I did at first. So I would say, oh, it's only 10 pounds or it's only 20 pounds. I was like down 50, 60 pounds. But by the time it got to the end of the year and everybody keeps commenting, I finally had to own up to it. But once I owned up to the amount of weight loss, I became proud of it, and I owned it. I was no longer ashamed of it. But it was almost like it was something to be ashamed of, and I don't know why. I mean, I guess because I didn't want all that attention at first, but now it's a different story because I share because I want to influence other people into a lifestyle change. But back then, it wasn't about sharing my story. And
tell us about your running and your heroes that have motivated you to be physically active and to participate in, I think you said either half marathons or marathons.
Yeah, before I get to the running, because you were talking about the plant-based heroes.
Yes.
Because this goes in sequence. In 2016, I came across Robert Cheek. I don't know if you're familiar with him, the vegan bodybuilder. The reason I stumbled upon him is because for the past few years after losing the weight, I was dealing with a lot of loose skin, especially around my belly. And I was very embarrassed because being active at the gym, and it's really kind of embarrassing to hear the noises that the flapping of the stomach can make. So I was really embarrassed by that. And I was doing everything I could to tighten my skin. And I thought one way would be to tighten with muscle. And I gotta say, it did work for my arms and chest and other areas, but it never did work on my belly. I know I'm going all over the place, but I ended up having a tummy tuck 5 years after my weight loss, because that was a promise to me, because if it didn't tighten by then, I figured it's never going to. But anyway, prior to that, I came across Robert Cheek, and in my quest to tighten my skin, and he had a 13-week challenge by his book Shred It. It was a journal, a Shred It journal, as he called it, and it was a 13-week thing. And I thought, I could do vegan for 13 weeks. I was already doing like a week-long vegan challenge here and there, and I actually kind of liked it, but I didn't stick with it at the time. And so I read his book, and I was doing it for 13 weeks. It started September 6, 2016. I'll never forget the date. My last meal was chicken marsala at a restaurant. I remember I was at a party, and I thought, 13 weeks, I could do this. I never went back to any kind of animal products after that, after the 13 weeks was up. The reason, not only because ethical reasons, I became an ethical vegan after watching the videos during those 13 weeks, but my muscle, I was building muscle, I was seeing better results than when I was having the minimal animal products. And no, I wasn't having many animal products. I was probably 70% plant-based, 70, 80%. But by just giving up the rest of them, I was seeing better results. I felt better than ever. And Robert Cheek, he was my hero. I have so many plant-based heroes, as you can tell, but I like to give them all credit because they really are part of my journey.
Yeah, I am a big fan of Robert Cheek. I learned about him early on, and I love following him. And, I finally got to meet him on one of the vegan cruises. And it's just I love his personality.
He's so positive too. And
yes, that's the thing, the positivity and the energy that he has. Yes.
Yeah. So if it weren't for, I would probably have gone vegan eventually anyway, but really he gave me the quicker jump start to it, I guess.
Yeah.
And, I'm forever grateful for all these people, him and Dr. Furman and, Dr. Greger.
A question, if I can interject, about your tummy tuck, because I've often wondered, I've heard about that, right? Like with significant weight loss. Is that something insurance companies can cover?
Unfortunately, no, but I was saving for 5 years just in case. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad I did. The only way insurance companies will pay for it, I guess, is if there's other conditions it's causing. Even though I did have skin irritation and rashes and things, they still wouldn't cover it. But,
okay.
But that was okay. I was saving for it, and I did do a number of consultations. I'm not one to jump into it. And the thing is, I had to do some soul searching before doing it because here I did the whole weight loss journey. It was all about doing it on my own. And I really felt bad that I had to do surgery, for the skin that wouldn't go away. So I really had to think long and hard about it.
Sure, I can imagine, but yeah, I've seen other videos of people making that decision too. But it helped. It probably enhanced your performance even more so, right?
It did. That's why I'm glad you asked about the running too, because in sequence, because it built my confidence. Eventually, I joined a run club. Are you familiar with Josh Lajani?
Big fan of his too. Yes.
Yeah, he has a run club for mostly obese men that end up losing the weight. It's a high success rate. Yeah, but I'm unique in that I had already lost the weight before joining the club. But anyway, they all motivated me, and I did my first half marathon in 2019. And I think the reason I was able to do it also is because I had this confidence. I didn't have this, I was very self-conscious of the loose skin that would be visible under my shirt. And the thing is, at the gym, I remember a few times somebody would say, "Oh, you must have lost a lot of weight because I see that the skin there," and it was embarrassing to me. And then on the treadmill, hearing the noises, it held me back really from wanting to run outside. So it was a huge confidence booster, and then I did my first half marathon, and that was an amazing experience. Just something I never in my life dreamed I could do.
Congratulations.
And I've since done my second one. That was a virtual one last year because of COVID. But eventually I want to do a full marathon.
I have a couple of questions about that, about your the club, the running club that Josh Lajani has, and also about how you did the virtual one. So that group, the running club for men, Missing Chins Running Club. So is that sort of like a support group where you encourage each other, but you're running in your own area? Is that what it is?
Yeah. And we're encouraging others to eat healthy too. It's about plant-based eating.
Okay, so it's really lifestyle.
Yeah, they encourage people along the way to, if they make mistakes, fine, just get right back into it. And that's what I think a lot of people need, is that encouragement to keep going.
Yes. So I don't know if you're aware, but our group, and I say our group, but our listeners or people who like to participate in things that we do, we just completed a virtual Grand Canyon adventure. And it was put on by Walk with the Doc, and people, we formed teams, and it was all virtually done, right? But we did running or walking or swimming, whatever it may be, in our own area. And then each team member logged in their hours, or their miles, that is, and so that we could help each other as a team complete 70 miles along the Grand Canyon. And
That's a great thing.
Richard, it was so amazing. I felt like a kid. I was so excited. And whenever you logged in your miles, it would show you where along the Grand Canyon rim you were.
I love that idea.
It would show you photos. So I'd love to hear about your virtual experience of the one that you recently did.
Yeah. Well, actually, that was more of on our own. We have an app, and you run in your own town. But I mean, you don't see the others' results until afterwards. But I love the idea that you just described. And if you ever do one again, let me know, because
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. I'll have to include you because, and today's newsletter, I just put out some of the images of the participants. But because we're living in this time, where we can't socialize and come together, what I love most about it is like anybody who hears our content who's interested can participate in a virtual experience. It's a way to kind of create an online community and also encourage each other to stay healthy.
Absolutely. You encourage the plant-based eating as well?
Yes. As a matter of fact, now this was not our event, but we invited people to participate. It was put on by Walk with the Doc, the national organization you probably heard of. name, but they partner with another organization to promote nutrition, like healthy fats, like eating avocados, for example. And so, they're called Love One Today. The whole point is that you encourage people to stay healthy.
Oh, absolutely.
So now you're training for a full marathon, you said?
Well, not yet. My goal is I'd love to do the New York City Marathon in the
Oh,
fall.
wow. Mm-hmm.
The only thing is I'm kind of sidetracked now. I had a knee injury in 2019 because in college I actually twisted my knee,
Wow.
and I think that might have contributed to the issues I'm having later on. But anyway, so the problem was I had swelling after a race in November of that year. I actually had to go to the ER. And here's the benefit of eating plant-based. The inflammation was gone within like a day or two. But now, fast forward a year, and the knee started to swell again. It lasted for a full year, the therapy and physical therapy. But the issue is I keep re-injuring myself somehow, so I'm going to go to a physical therapist to try to figure out what I'm doing wrong that I'm injuring myself. So once I have the swelling under control, I mean, it goes away and then comes back. But once that's under control again, I plan to start training again.
That's always important to take care of that injury too. I had an injury on my arm, but related to running away from an insect that was trying to come in the house. And I did something like this, and I felt this sharp pain go through. So I too need to go to a physical therapist before I can lift weights again.
I highly recommend, especially the first round that I had. The second round wasn't so great, so I'm trying to find another physical therapist. Okay. But I highly recommend them. But also the plant-based eating, I gotta say though, it's great because when they drained my knee the first time, there was no infection. The swelling stayed away. And I think it's because of my healthy eating that the swelling doesn't last. I mean, I'm still gaining it. That's the problem. But I know the inflammation is staying away.
And not only that, I remember one of the things that drew me to Robert Cheeke initially was when I was learning about what to eat to work out, is what to eat to recover after a workout.
I'm glad you mentioned that because another reason I liked Robert Cheeke, his message, I had a trainer at the time, and I've since given up these gym trainers because I already know what I'm doing anyway. But I had this one trainer, and he was obsessed with protein. And he would tell me to have 200 grams a day. And I actually tried whey protein and at the time because I wasn't 100% vegan. And I actually got sick that one time that I tried it. I mean, sick to my stomach, and it was a mess. So I'm so grateful my body rejected it. But the problem was I was having probably 200 grams of plant-based protein. Yes, it's gentler, but it wasn't needed. And my doctor, I had another doctor since my first doctor that I went to. He told me that I could damage my kidney or liver having that much protein. And so he got me to think about it. And then Robert Cheeke, he didn't encourage all this protein, and so I'm so grateful for his advice.
Yeah. Can you actually tell us a little bit about the foods? Because, you are an athlete now, you run. What sort of foods do you eat when you want to really build that energy to run? And then what do you eat during recovery?
I eat a lot of fruit, especially, prior to a run, banana even is sufficient. I don't like to run on a full stomach, but so, banana or orange is fine. After the run, I like to have my breakfast then, which is oatmeal, which I think is a great recovery food, at least for me. I have the oatmeal typical way everybody, all plant-based eaters have it, with the flax and chia seeds and nuts and seeds and, berries. When I go to the gym to do weights, I will finish with a smoothie of, just a bunch of veggies and fruit that I think will. I don't really count protein. I used to add protein powder to it, but I figure there's more than enough protein in the smoothie, just with the real foods.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because we did a post recently where we shared like the ingredients that go into our smoothie, and an individual replied, "Where do you get your protein?" And I thought, oh, it's always that question. My goodness, it's like we always have to. Well, most foods have protein, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Or
And
most
that's the thing.
plant-based foods.
Nobody realizes that. I have there's a nutrition professor at the college I work at, and she was very ignorant in plant-based eating as well. And I actually opened her eyes about a lot of how healthy it could be, because she was under the impression that we're missing something.
Hmm.
And she's one of the people who thought you couldn't get enough protein, and you had to mix the proteins and all that. And I think the more people see our stories, the more they realize that what they were taught isn't right.
Hmm.
And I'm kind of proud that she's starting to open her eyes too. She told me that she realizes that being vegan can be healthy in the right way.
So let's talk about how you guys started with this sharing your story, going on different podcasts and different channels, sharing your story. And then also, how did you decide to write a book?
Yeah, I decided to share my story on Facebook first, because I saw other people were sharing their stories, and I always found them incredibly inspirational whenever I read somebody's weight loss story. It helped me along the way, and eventually I got to the point where so many people were saying, "How did you do it?" People in public, that I thought, well, why not try just to share my story just once, see what happens. So I shared it on my personal Facebook page, and I couldn't believe the amount of comments, and people were inspired by it. And I thought, wow, I'm actually inspiring people. It was an amazing feeling, thinking that I might actually be teaching others something. So the more I got plant-based, the more I got 100% vegan, I wanted to get my story out there because I wanted people to know that you can live this way and be healthy and build muscle and everything. And I think when I went vegan, especially, because I should also say when I went vegan at first, I was ashamed to admit I was vegan. And I don't know why. Well, actually, I do know why. Growing up, people around me used to think you can't be vegan. Nobody can be vegan and sustain it. So I because of Robert Cheek's food journal, his workout journal, I thought I'm going to tell people I'm doing a 13-week challenge, and if they see a difference too, then they'll see that being vegan can work. So this was done locally. I decided to share it with people I work out with, and I bought my first vegan T-shirt that I wore at the gym. It was the "No Meat, No Problem." I still have that shirt today, courtesy of our friend Robert Cheek. And so I wore that at the gym. People would ask questions. No meat, no problem. What does that mean? And I would share that what I'm doing for 13 weeks. And because people were seeing the results after 13 weeks, and I decided to share the story online. And I started to share my story on plant-based groups, and the story would go pretty far. And people would always ask me, "How did I do it?" And there's there's only so much you could say in a small post, because there's so many answers to how I did it. It was because of blood pressure, but then there's other items that I wanted to include with that. So because there's only so much to say in a post, I decided I really should write a book. And I didn't know what a huge undertaking it would be, but I started the book. I think it was sometime 2018, because I looked at the date of when I started it. And if you want to find a blessing in disguise with the pandemic, because it's hard to find anything positive about it, I was able to find the time to finally finish my book during that year. By December, I have a copy of it here just to show everybody the cover. I wrote my first book, A Plant-Based Journey to Health.
Wow, congratulations.
I had to learn self-publish. I may be a designer by trade, but I had no idea what I was doing with publishing. And so I'm self-taught. I had to teach myself the web, and I'm a webmaster, and so I knew I could figure out how to publish a book, and I figured it out with Amazon, and it's gotten a very positive response, which I'm grateful for.
When did you release that book? Was it this year?
Well, December of 2020.
Oh, yeah. So you, like you said, you started in 2018, but 2020 gave you the opportunity to finish your book.
When I started it up again in 2020, my promise was to finish by the end of the year. And one thing I didn't know about myself before I started my weight loss journey is, I think I mentioned this before, I'm very stubborn, and I said I'd finish in 2020, and that's what I forced myself to do. So I made sure it was out in December.
Yeah. If there's one thing that I'm learning about you is that you stick to your word. You say you're stubborn, but at the same time, you're very disciplined. So when you decided to make that change towards improving your health, your high blood pressure, you stayed on top of that. And then same thing with working out, running, and now also publishing your book.
And that's something I never knew about myself, which I always tell everybody, I'm amazed as anybody that I kept it off, but you're absolutely right. It's my determination. And that's why I think it's wanting to show people I can do it. That's why I want to do the marathon eventually. Mm-hmm. Just to have the experience of saying I did something that less than 1% of the population has ever done.
Your book is available on Amazon, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll include a link as well so that people can know how to purchase it. Reviews help you a lot as well, right?
Oh, I appreciate that. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I have 4 reviews so far. I keep trying to remind people on the Facebook.
I know. I don't know why it's so hard for us to remember. That's a big thing. Like, I actually like helping people. When I buy products on Amazon and I have time and I remember, I do write reviews or give feedback. So what else would you like our listeners to know about you?
I'd also like to talk about, supplements. I was thinking other topics we didn't cover. Okay. I do take B12, which is critical, and D3. I'd like to mention I just had lab work, and my vitamin D was checked, and B12, and they were perfect. I know some people were low in vitamin D, especially because I'm in the Northeast. So I do think those are critical vitamins, especially if you're not getting much sun, like I'm not this time of year. Mm-hmm. And I also take DHA after watching Dr. Greger's video, a plant-based one, just because, I want to protect my brain. And
that's a big topic, the DHA. When was your last visit to the physician? And I know that you had the significant improvement with your blood pressure. How are things looking overall?
Yeah. Great. My cholesterol is great. My blood sugar is great. I'm very happy. When I see blood sugar in the 80s, it just excites me because, my mom was type 2 diabetic, as I mentioned, and it's under control, and she's a lot better from that. But there's other people in the family that are type 2 diabetic, and my doctor told me a few years ago, if I keep on this lifestyle, which I'm never going to change because I love it, he said, I'll never have to worry about diabetes. And hearing those words, that was all the encouragement I need.
That's right.
And just seeing it here in my blood pressure, it's 110/70 or 110/60. I love that because it shows me, it reinforces that what I'm doing is working. Mm-hmm. And I recently switched to a plant-based doctor online for telemedicine. Just for this one appointment this year. He loses his license in Connecticut next year because of COVID. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to go to a plant-based doctor, and that's why I got my B12 and D checked, because my current doctor, he doesn't believe in checking B12 for some reason.
By the way, the doctor wouldn't happen to be Dr. Harrington, would he? Okay, so I've interviewed Dr. Harrington, Dr. Scott Harrington, twice now, and I would love to hear from you your experience when it comes to telemedicine, because I've been trying to kind of get the word out and encourage people that if they don't have a plant-based primary care physician in their area, they can try this online experience where you can speak with your physician. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
I love it, actually. Next year, because he loses his license, my goal is to find another plant-based doctor who can continue to see me. But I would continue to see him if he still had his license. But anyway, I love the experience because he actually spends an hour with you going over everything. He goes line by line on the lab work. He's very thorough, a lot more thorough than you'd ever get from a doctor visit, because typically they have to keep it down to like 10, 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And it's not as personable. And as long as you take your stats ahead of time, I was prepared. I checked my blood pressure and my vitals. I wear my Apple Watch, so I was able to check my heart rate. Mm-hmm. And as long as you have those things ready, your temperature, the weight, he asks you those things. It's really, I think, better than.
Right? I mean, if we ever go back to the way that we used to see our physician back in the day, I don't know. I think I would still enjoy having this conversation like this, like via Zoom, where I'm speaking with my physician, telling him what's going on with me. He even told me, I don't know if you have used the app, I forgot the name of it, but he told me that there's an app that he asks his patients to use where they can photograph their food. You're the compliant patient, but for individuals who say, well, doctor, I don't know why my numbers are not changing, I'm eating plant-based. So he can see what you're actually eating and then help you to modify that so you can improve your health a little bit more, right?
He actually said to me, I probably don't even need a doctor. Anyway, I went to him, like I said, because I wanted certain levels checked, and he did it. And the thing is, primary care, I think, is changing. We'll always need, certain kinds of doctors, like plastic surgeons. Obviously, they have to be on site, and cardiologists. There's certain fields that you have to see them in person, obviously. Mm-hmm. But for primary care, where they're just looking at your vitals and your lab work, I don't see why you couldn't go to a doctor in Florida if you're from Connecticut like me, and just go to a doctor that you want to see, a plant-based doctor. Mm-hmm. I love the experience, and like I said, I plan to continue even after my doctor unfortunately loses his license.
Right. And that being, I kind of want to explain a little bit more about what you mean by losing his license is that when 2020 happened and the COVID hit, there was sort of a little bit more leeway for physicians to practice telemedicine because of the social distancing and things like that. So many of these individuals kind of started to accumulate licenses throughout the country. But now it seems like the regulations, I don't know if that's what it's called, but like the regulations are going to change a little bit, and they're going to go back to being strict and probably taking longer to be licensed in every state. I haven't really needed any kind of treatment in the last 10 or 15 years, but I do want to make it a habit to every year kind of see my physician just to check the numbers and maybe even to share on social media that I'm doing well.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
A couple of things. Do you have any final words for our listeners? Maybe some of our listeners do not have weight issues, but are curious about becoming more physically active and challenging themselves to do like a marathon or just a physical challenge. And then also, can you tell us what's the best way to get a hold of you if we want to follow you on social media? Do you have a website, etc.?
Yeah, let me start with the website. I have a blog. Actually, it's going to be rebranded soon because I want to have it more nationally branded or internationally branded, really. But right now it's healthylivingct.com. It's not really focused on Connecticut, even though that's the name of the website. But it has all about my journey since I think I started with a friend of mine back in 2014 or so. And he started originally blogging too, but he kind of lost interest in blogging. But it really follows my story and all along of how I'm building muscle and how I'm preparing for a race and everything. And also I have a YouTube channel, Healthy Living in CT, and that has my interviews with Dr. Furman, Dr. Clapper, Chef AJ, and many others. Hopefully others come.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
And, so that's where you can find me. And
yeah, if you have any kind of final words of encouragement for our listeners.
As I said before, I don't want people to get discouraged. I know it's so easy to get discouraged, but really stay on course. If you make a mistake, I wrote in my book a funny story about, well, not funny, but I was having lunch with a coworker after I made lifestyle changes. This was in 2012, and he had a bag of chips that he couldn't finish, so he gave them to me. And I was already eating healthy at that point, and I finished the chips, and I had the worst headache for the next day or so. And I realized at that moment that that just going back to those foods could trigger anything. It could get blood pressure problems again, and it could all come back to me. So I would like to say that there's failures along the way, like I had. Just pick yourself up and never give up, because it's worth it. And I also have to say that I'm an ethical vegan, and because of that, it's helped me stay on course since 2016. I've never wanted to eat animal products after watching the videos. I mean, it's everybody's personal choice, but for me, because it became about the animals too, I now obsessively look at ingredients, because if there's eggs in it, or dairy, I definitely don't want it. So for me, that really worked, being ethical.
Thank you for bringing that up, because we too are ethical vegans now. I mean, I said I started vegan, but really I started with not eating animal products. Then I became plant-based. Then I watched the documentaries. That's when I realized about the cruelty that animals endure, and it's so unnecessary because we can find all our nutrients that we need in plant-based foods. Yeah, I feel like since we've gone plant-based, that my heart has opened up even more to all sorts of animals. Like the compassion is even stronger than ever before.
That's exactly how I feel too.
Yeah. And so I don't want to contribute to that. And plus, I want to take care of my health, because even if I'm good right now, I'm not going to add to my health by eating eggs again,
Exactly. Well, for me, it's about the health and the animals and the environment.
That's right.
Really about all of them.
Well, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing by sharing your story of inspiration and giving other people hope. It means so much that I was able to chat with you, and continue that great work of sharing your story. I'm going to put all your links in the show notes as well.
I appreciate that. And it was a great interview. I enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you, Richard Hubbard. Thank you so much. You've been listening to the Plant-Based DFW podcast show. If you like our content, please like, share, and leave a review. Our goal is to provide quality episodes to help support the community.